Hello, everyone. I just want to tell you about a podcast I think you'll enjoy. If you're like me, I'm always on the podcast apps looking for something else scary to add to my feed. And this one is called The Most Terrifying Places in America by the Travel Channel. On the podcast, they visit some of the creepiest locations across the United States. They go to a hotel in New England where guests wake up and they're covered in scratches. My personal favourite is the one where there's a church in the middle of the woods and the security guards have to stay there for the night, and it's really, really creepy. There's so many different places on there. Get yourself a nice coffee or tea, pop it on and enjoy. Listen to The Most Terrifying Places in America wherever you get your podcast. Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to day 5 of 14 days of summer fear. I've got 2 stories to share today. I'll get straight into them. Are you ready for the first story? Cursed hike in Oregon. I've had a few unsettling experiences in the woods, but this is unquestionably the strangest one. I've been mulling it over for years and still can't come up with a rational explanation. A few details have been changed to protect my identity, but this story is 100% true. I apologise for how long it is. In 2018, my partner and I drove up to a national forest in Oregon for a day hike in early summer. The area was somewhat remote, but nothing too isolated. Hiking is huge in the Pacific Northwest, so there are plenty of other people on these trails at any given time, especially during peak season. Because of this, in the hopes of getting some alone time, it was an approximately 6-mile out and back moderate difficulty hike with a waterfall at the end. It followed a river and didn't intersect with any other trails. Simple enough, right? We were both experienced hikers in good physical condition, so we had no reason to think we needed anything but day packs and a couple of litres of water and sandwiches. Getting back before dark should have been a piece of cake. We set out sometime afternoon. At first, we took it slow and meandered around the riverbank for a few minutes. I found a cool animal bone, and we mused over what it might be. It was clearly a vertebrae from a large mammal, so we guessed it was probably a deer bone. Because I'm a little morbid and like collecting things of that nature, I put it in my pack. That might not have anything to do with what happened next, but I feel like I should mention it since it was out of the ordinary. The hike to the waterfall was beautiful. We passed a few other people on their way back to the trailhead. But for the most part, we had the place to ourselves. We stopped a few times to look at wildlife or take photos of flowers. I was tracking our progress on my Fitbit, so I always knew how many miles we'd travelled and how much time we had before sunset. We reached the waterfall at about 3.2 miles, which matched what the map had said. I paused my watch and we settled on a large boulder to rest and eat our lunch. Another young couple were there with their dog. We said hello and then minded our own business. Here's where everything went wrong. As we packed up our stuff and prepared to leave, my partner, Michael, tipped off the boulder and twisted his ankle badly. The other couple heard his surprised scream as he splashed into the water, so they rushed over to help. The three of us hauled him back to dry land and assessed the injury. None of us were doctors, but we thought it was a sprain. The swelling had already begun, and Michael said the pain was serious. He could barely stand. Upon realising this, the male half of the couple started backing away and seemed anxious to leave. I asked him if he could go get help, but he didn't respond. Neither did his wife. They both just turned around and started booking it up the trail, with the dog trotting behind them. I called out to them in frustration, but they didn't look back. Needless to say, we didn't have cell service that deep in the woods, so we couldn't contact anyone else. We had to hike back. "It'll be okay," I said to Michael. "It's only 3 miles. You can do this." We shifted the water bottles and our modest amount of gear into my pack, so he wouldn't have to carry anything, and made decent progress. I was still tracking the hike on my Fitbit. After about 2 miles, Michael ran out of steam and we rested again. I told him to lean on me to take the weight off his injured ankle. Even though I'm a head shorter than him, it seemed to help. "We're almost there," I said. "Just 1 more mile." Despite the setback, we were in pretty high spirits. The sun was still up and the woods were still beautiful. We made light of our predicament. Michael joked that he can't do anything without getting hurt or breaking something, and I comforted him. We both thought the ordeal was nearly over. Eventually, I realised we'd been walking longer than expected. I assumed it only felt that way because we were moving at a slower pace. But when I checked my watch and saw that we'd gone further than a mile, I started to worry. We were at 6.6 miles total. That meant the walk back to the trailhead was longer than the walk to the waterfall. That couldn't be right, but I figured I must have made a mistake at some point. Maybe I hadn't started the tracker until we'd already travelled a ways at the beginning. Regardless, the parking lot had to be around the next curve in the trail. But it wasn't. We went another half mile or so before stopping to assess the situation. Over 7 total miles, and we still weren't back. What the heck? I checked the map of our hike on the Fitbit app and saw that there weren't any gaps. It was a straight line from beginning to end, with a line doubled back on itself, indicating that we were on the same route. Where was the trailhead? We talked it over and concluded that it had to be a glitch. Michael was adamant that we hadn't passed the trailhead and we couldn't have taken a wrong turn because there were no other trails. Plus, the scenery was all familiar. We saw things we remembered passing on our way to the waterfall. It was definitely the same trail and well maintained too. A big, wide dirt track that followed the river and didn't veer off into the undergrowth. Losing the trail was impossible. At that point, we started to feel demoralised. But what could we do except keep going? Our phone still didn't have service. Michael was in a lot of pain and struggling to put weight on his sprained ankle. It was twice the size of his other ankle. He was sweating. I was sweating. The whole thing started to feel like a nightmare. When we went another mile and still didn't reach the trailhead, we panicked. Night falls quickly in the forest, and we had little daylight left. We were almost out of water, had no rain gear or other food, and the only flashlights were the ones on our phones. Of course, we cursed ourselves for not bringing more supplies, but we were only supposed to be out there for a few hours. It was just a short day hike, and we had no idea how it could have gone so wrong. Out of desperation, I yelled for help. We'd seen no people since that strange couple had abandoned us near the waterfall. But I was sure that we had to be close to the parking lot. That didn't mean there was anyone there, but we were both so freaked out. I was willing to make a fool of myself if it meant rescue. To our dismay, nobody answered. We were alone. In an attempt to get a grip, we reasoned that maybe we really had passed the trailhead we started at. Maybe we were so focused on keeping Michael off his bad foot that we simply missed it and were hiking toward the next trailhead. We were pretty sure that wasn't the case, but it was the only explanation that made sense. We were definitely still on the same trail, and though we couldn't be certain, it seemed like the landscape had changed. We no longer recognised any of the landmarks except the river, and that seemed to support our theory that we'd gone too far. We knew we weren't walking in circles. That wasn't possible. Should we turn back? We mulled that over for a few minutes. If we were wrong, backtracking would guarantee spending a night in the woods. Michael couldn't deal with that ankle forever. We decided to press onward. I'm not crazy, right? I asked. That initial hike was only 3 miles. We went 3 miles to the waterfall. Yes, Michael agreed. The entire hike was supposed to be a little over 6 miles out and back. We've walked a lot further than that. We should have gotten back a long time ago. I don't understand what's happening. When night fell, we picked up the pace. Michael stopped leaning on me and limped down the trail as fast as he could. He later said adrenaline dulled the pain of his injury and gave him the motivation to continue. That part of Oregon is mountain lion country, and I just read about a lion attack a few weeks prior to our hike. Being caught out there in the dark was the absolute last thing we wanted, but there was nothing we could do about it. We were scared. Michael shone his phone light on the path ahead to make sure we didn't lose our footing, and I shone mine at the trees, scanning for cat eyes. I was crying. Fitbit said we'd hiked 9 total miles. After 9.5 miles, we finally saw the sign for the trailhead and scrambled toward it. Relief didn't completely wash over me though, because I expected we'd have to either hitchhike back to where we started or trudge along the side of the road for a few miles more. There was simply no way this could be the trailhead. It was 3 miles past where it should have been. As we climbed the short set of steps up the parking lot, sweaty, thirsty, exhausted, and completely unnerved, I hoped to see a car. My prayers were answered, but it was my car. We were at the same trailhead. For a moment, Michael and I stared in shock. Our fear and misery were replaced by sheer confusion, and we just stood there. then a twig snapped somewhere in the woods behind us and broke the spell. We hurried across the parking lot towards the car, and in those few seconds, I felt an intense dread. The best way I can describe it is the feeling you get in a nightmare when something is pursuing you and you're trying to run away, but moving in slow motion. Like your legs just won't cooperate, and you know the thing chasing you is going to catch up. This is the only time in my life I've ever felt that outside of a dream. We managed to pile into the vehicle and peel out the lot. I was shaking. Michael was rambling about time distortion and dehydration, and how we must have lost our bearings somehow. We got out the national forest and onto the highway, and it was a while before we encountered any other cars. I didn't fully relax until we made it back to civilization. Neither of us can figure out exactly what we experienced. Michael was on crutches for months following that incident, and his ankle has never been the same. I still have the bone I found, but I keep it in a box because it gives me bad vibes. When we go hiking these days, we stick to the crowded trails. Whatever happened that day, we do not want it to ever happen again.
If you're like me, you're really hung up on why the couple left in such a hurry. Did they see something? Did they know something was going to happen? Did they cause it to happen? So many questions I have on the couple. The collected bone, I kind of get that, because once when I was on a walk with Rog, I saw, this is kind of gross, but I saw a sheep skull, but it hadn't quite finished decomposing. And I really wanted it. I'm just a bit weird, obviously. But I'm so glad that they found that car park in the end. It's just a bizarre, bizarre story. Are you ready for the second story?
Something ran at my mum in our backyard. I just recently found this subreddit, and the stories reminded me of something that happened to my mum a year or two ago. I asked her about it again today, just to refresh my memory, and so here I am. Just a heads up, I'm a very sucky writer, so sorry in advance. About my backyard. It's pretty long and connects to an alleyway, and all the way at the back we have 2 poles that used to be used for hanging clothes out to dry. They're probably about 6.5 feet tall. Connecting to my house in the yard is a porch. It's basically a room with 2 of the walls taken out and replaced with wire mesh. And now to the actual story. We live in a 2-bedroom house with me, my cousin, her son, my mum and my grandfather. Me and my mum used to share a room until my cousin got pregnant, so she gave up our room so she wouldn't be sleeping on an uncomfortable couch. For a while, my mum and I slept in the living room, her on the couch and me on an air mattress. Up until 2 years ago, my mum reverted a room in our basement into a bedroom for me for Christmas, so I could get some privacy for myself. My mum still sleeps in the living room on the couch, so she doesn't have any privacy except for the back porch, so she pretty much just sits out there all day. It had to have been about a year or 2 ago, in late summer / early fall, but she was sitting on the porch, as she usually does, and she looks out into the backyard and sees something standing in the alley right behind our fence. It was pretty dark out, so she couldn't make out exactly what it looked like, but she said it had a human figure, was completely white, about the size of the poles we have in our yard. She told me that it hopped the fence no problem and started sprinting at her, like if it were running a marathon or something. It then got a couple of feet away from the porch window and then just disappeared. She said she was so scared that she was completely frozen that entire time. She didn't move her body for a good 20 seconds because she was scared that if it saw her move, it was going to come back. She just kept moving her eyes to get them to adjust to the dark so she could see if there was anything still outside. To come outside to the porch, you need to walk through the kitchen, and that's where I was. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she burst through the door and runs to the sink to get a knife. So now I'm panicking because I thought there was a murderer outside or something. And then she tells me what happened. We both stayed there for a good hour, just looking out the kitchen window to see if that thing was still there. I haven't talked to her about that at all since then, until now. Mostly because I just forgot. But yeah, I just wanted to share and see what people think. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm bad at writing and most of this is pretty messy, but I tried my best. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask.
Now, when I had this creature in my mind's eye, I kind of saw the rake or something very similar. Terrifying that it ran towards the mum. There's just nothing nice about that. I'm not struggling to put it into words, but something running at you is horrid. And that's got to be one of my main creep factors going on there. Something ran at me. Well, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
Popsicles, sprinklers, a cool breeze. Talk about refreshing. You know what else is refreshing this summer? A brand new phone with Verizon. Yep, get a new phone on any plan with Select Phone Trade-in and My Plan. And lock down a low price for 3 years on any plan with My Plan. This is a deal for everyone, whether you're a new or existing customer. Swing by Verizon today for our best phone deals. 3-year price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate only. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.